CEO.
Thanks, Phil. Thank you very much. Thanks very much, Phil. I think it's a good setup and good context for the talk that I'm going to give here. So first of all, welcome. Welcome. I hope you're enjoying your lunch as well. And I'll try to let that continue as I talk a little bit through the lunch half an hour here. So the main theme that I'm really getting across today is around making WebRTC business useful. Another word for creating value and things of that nature, right? So that we become out of this trough of disillusionment that Phil talked about us potentially being in, and really moving that up the curve to much more of a general acceptance of the technology and a much more business useful purposes for it, if you will. So just by way of introduction, I've had quite a bit of experience in enterprise communications throughout my career. I've had experience with developers, application developers and others, and also experience with service provider relationships and networks and deployments. So kind of the breadth of everyone who's very interested in WebRTC today. So from that perspective, hopefully we as Dialogic and I can lend some credibility to the space and continue to help all of you accelerate our efforts to make it a very business useful technology as we go forward. So is WebRTC business useful today? I think in some of the applications that you'll see here at the conference and some of the things we'll talk about that our customers are doing, it's becoming business useful, certainly. There's been a lot of hype around it, obviously, and that hype has been accelerated over the past couple of years. Obviously, the attendance at a conference like this speaks to the fact that it's something a lot of people are very interested in and looking for ways to get engaged and involved and obviously make money from the technology. So the fact that it's open source and Google has really gotten behind it, it behooves all of us to take a good look at it. When someone like Google has the horsepower they do of pushing these things forward, hopefully good things can happen for many of us really behind that curve. So I want to give you a little bit of our perspective from Dialogic. So just by way of introduction in the company, it's been around about 20 years or so. Really a company that is involved in about 90% of the top mobile operators around the world with our applications and solutions that have been built on our platforms. About 80% of the Fortune 500 use some sort of Dialogic technology in their call centers, their IVRs, their messaging platforms. And then there are really thousands of developers who over time, either from the TDM and board business that Dialogic started now to the software-oriented company that we are, having thousands of people out there working with our technology to bring value to end user customers. So we've had a horizontal media processing platform for quite some time, a real-time communication platform that's been in use by thousands of developers and hundreds of customers. And we work closely with many of you in the room and many other customers to see things before they get to market. We see kind of what's working. We get to see the ideas that are out there. We also get to see what didn't work. Obviously, some of the things that have worked well is around IVR or color ringback tones, speech to text, things of that nature that were created on top of some of that early media processing sort of technology. So I think we have a pretty good perspective as to what's going on, and the engagements that we're involved in are really helping educate us as to what the needs are in the market and how to meet those needs and how to meet the developer and customer needs to make it quicker and faster and more productive for all of you to continue to make WebRTC business useful. So let's look at a few numbers, by the way. So we introduced a new software-only platform a few months back here last fall called Power Media 2.0. It was the WebRTC-enabled Power Media platform. We have about 200 unique engagements going on across the globe at this point in time, and over 90 of those are WebRTC engagement. So there's a lot of interest here, around WebRTC in general from customers who are looking at that rich media processing platform that we provide. The predominant focus that we're seeing, almost 3/4 of the customers using it, of the 200 applications and the 91 WebRTC engagements, is from communication service provider focus. And in the last 6 months, 9 months, we've seen a real uptick in the tier one large service providers across the globe getting into it and doing proof of concepts and things of that nature. When we launched Power Media XMS 2.0, we had 6 proof of concepts rolling with large tier ones. We were going to do 20 betas. It ended up being 30, and there were quite a few more developers and partners who wanted in on the program. Now that it's generally available, obviously, we have quite a few more than that. But it was a great start. The demand for getting in on the ground floor with betas, et cetera, was really exciting for Dialogic as a company. And again, seeing a lot of that in the communication service provider focus that we've been seeing. Because of that big service provider interest, if you will, there's a large need. Almost 2/3 of the companies out there said that they have a need to interwork their networks, their existing networks, with WebRTC. So again, that's something that we as Dialogic are pretty good at doing and helping them with, and so that's why we see a lot of interest, obviously, in that area. It's also not a US sort of phenomenon. 2/3 approximately of our engagements are outside the United States. We see pockets of activity in the Caribbean, Latin America region. We see it in the Middle East. We're seeing quite a bit going on in Africa, Central Africa, and South Africa, as well as kind of the usual suspects of the US and the more mature markets of Asia, like Japan, Korea, et cetera. So we are seeing this across the globe. The sales teams that we have, there's not an account manager in Dialogic that doesn't have action going with WebRTC and Power Media XMS with their either developer customers or end user customers. The breakthrough that we're seeing is around video in particular. The easy kind of embeddability of video that WebRTC brings has really started to accelerate this. We've been trying to get to wide scale video telephony for quite some time. From 324M type technologies where we had a few little pockets of success, but it wasn't really what people were looking for. We think WebRTC really opens that up and brings video to the forefront of usability for small, medium, and large customers alike. And I think that's a key attribute of what WebRTC can bring to bear. So what about the business justification for WebRTC? It's a cool technology, that's great. A lot of development teams, our own development teams at Dialogic, get really jazzed about working on new things and discovering how to work with them and taking them to the next level. At the same time, for people to purchase them from you, to send you POs for them, they need to be business useful. There needs to be business justification. Obviously, the two broad categories of that are either lowering costs, total cost of ownership, CapEx, things of that nature, or improving revenues, raising revenue with new services or better customer service or differentiated services based on value of customer, things of that nature. So today, I think we're just at the beginning of that business justification for WebRTC, taking it kind of out of just the coolness of developing it and making it business useful for our customers and our end users. So we take a look at WebRTC, and one of the exciting things about it, certainly for developers and customers, is it's free. A lot of open source out there, right? But you might say, okay, and I know a number of you sitting there go, what do you mean free? Okay, it's open source, I can get the code, I can start working on it. But it isn't really free because there's an awful lot of work that needs to be done to make sure the applications work for customers and deliver on the value that it promises. So, when something's free, it's not always that valuable, right? And so, in taking a look at that, we wanted to try to do some of these things ourselves. Obviously, in being a big advocate for WebRTC, to begin to use it ourselves, predominantly we're using it on the first equation, which is that kind of total cost of ownership and lowering costs for Dialogic as we're around the world with our deployment teams and support teams and things of that nature. So what I'd like to move to right now is just a short video clip that speaks to what we did. We're doing it weekly with our development teams that are all over the world. So what we have in mind here is we've been working with our development teams in India, in the UK, in Singapore, in New Jersey, and in California, and working together. And our engineering management teams and that are really using this technology. So if we could, if it is going to happen for us, try to play that video clip. It should be more than a question mark as we go.
Adoption into the WebRTC spec. Is that Has that been done? There was talk of it. I think we've had a customer question or two as far as transferring DTMF between a bridged SIP and WebRTC call.
All right, so we kind of cut the volume there at the end so I could speak over it a little bit. But these are a number of our engineers, our VP of Software Engineering. These people are all over the world. It's a Friday morning conference call that's held to see where we are in the various developmental activities. So we've been using it. I think you can see it's pretty clear. Up to 9 people in an interactive video conference that we use inside the business pretty frequently with the media server assets that we have in-house. We've also been working with some of our application partners, some of the large technology equipment manufacturers, and some of the large tier ones to do the development meetings as we're in the proof of concepts and beta tests using this technology to do that. So in our case, spending really tens of thousands of dollars a year, being a global company in 30 countries, quite a bit of money there, if you will, being spent on conferencing and collaboration type applications. This is able to cut our monthly costs by about $6,000 or so by using this. So just in our own case, a nice recovery on OpEx for us using our own technology. So just an example of, kind of WebRTC in action for you. So we talked about total cost of ownership and lowering costs and expenses for companies. So how do you generate revenue with WebRTC? It's a thing that really matters to all of us. Certainly Dialogic, we care a lot about making money and generating revenue. We know we've got to have quality platforms and excellent people in order to make that happen. At the same time, people would say that, look, WebRTC is a commodity. Will someone really pay for a commodity? And, definition of a commodity is there's demand, but it's supplied without a lot of differentiation out there. And where does that kind of differentiation come from? So it's a commodity. Will someone pay for it just as it exists today, or do people need to add a lot of value to it to make it business useful? Well, we want to, help people understand how they take it from this, right? And, you can kind of make up what you think those are if you're in the back of the room, but they're coffee beans, just so you can see that. Obviously a commodity. Some coffee guys are better producers than others, different types of coffee from different regions of the world. But nonetheless, if you're Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks or Tim Hortons or whomever, you start with the basic coffee bean, right? So how do you take something that's a commodity and turning it into something that has a lot of value add? I think as most of us know that have ever been in this fine establishment, you can get a 99-cent cup of coffee, but you have to look awful hard on the menu to find it. You're looking at $7 frappuccinos that are iced with caramel and everything else, right? So, this particular company and many like them have gone out and said, what do my clients want? How do I need to do it? There's even been a new language created when you walk into a Starbucks in particular, and many of the baristas already know exactly what you want because you're ordering it every day, right? But the 99-cent coffee has become the $7, $9, $10 coffee, and the margins are extremely steep because of the value-added services, if you will, that a place like Starbucks or Dunkin' Donuts or the rest of them have begun to add on top of it. So, do we think that you can make money from a commodity? We absolutely do when value can be added as we portray here. So those of us, I should say, that have been in the communication services business for quite a long time certainly remember the acronym VAS, V-A-S, value-added services, right? Well, we think this is really the advent of value-added services 2.0. So, their traditional telephony has been going on an awful long time. People have been making phone calls for something like 120 or 130 years, and just that connection doesn't add a lot of value. But adding the quality on top of it, like echo cancellation, being able to record it and use it for marketing, being able to record it for regulations and things of that nature, getting into the things like interactive voice response and speech to text and a number of other things, we've added a lot of value to traditional telephony. Well, as we move to value-added services 2.0, we think that it's going to get a lot faster and a lot better given the types of networks, given the ability to interwork WebRTC with the networks that are out there currently, and adding a lot of value on top of the old traditional telephony with web telephony as we begin to implement that and make those work ubiquitously with the new networks that are out there, high-speed networks that can really handle the sort of capabilities that many of you are creating and thinking about really on a daily basis. So I wanted to spend just a few minutes talking at WebRTC at work in the real world. Many of you here are giving demonstrations and panels about some of the work you're doing with your customers. We've got a few here. A number of you in this room are part of these next use cases that you'll see, just to kind of show you what's going on and different examples in different segments of the market. The first one that we take a look at, this is down in Cala with one of our partners doing WebRTC in the airport. So we're all familiar with the call centers that many of us call into to get reservations, change a flight due to weather issues, changes in plans, whatever it might be, standing in line at the customer service desk. The people running that contact center for that airline have people sitting idle an awful lot of the time, but when flights land and right before flights take off, there are spikes in terms of the ability to get to an agent at all. So the management of that, the cost-effective management, is difficult. What this particular application developer has done is not replace the infrastructure. So if you want video kiosks everywhere, there's a lot of infrastructure. Some that did this in the US put in separate networks for these video kiosks. They used the existing infrastructure, enabled it with WebRTC and video, and so have it now on the video kiosk within the airport itself, but have it on tablets and smartphones. So, if you're a Premier Access of United, you can go in and basically from your, wherever you have the application loaded, go ahead in and check on things, et cetera. You don't need to download a different client. It's not expensive. It's easier for general consumers to be able to use it. They don't have to be technology geeks to make sure they can operate this efficiently. So this is something that's up and running in demo and proof of concept within, for the largest airline in South America, for instance. The next one here, our friends at Caltech down in Colombia have a dancing application that they've produced for a studio that is teaching people how to dance. What they want to do is expand throughout Bogota and then throughout Colombia. And the traditional way of doing that would have been to open other studios, train and certify instructors, have some physical, asset in terms of the building itself, et cetera. What they've decided to do in expanding this value proposition is utilize WebRTC and be able to bring in a lot more users and instructors and do that remotely and add more students for learning how to do these various dances that they're moving with, and then also obviously doing that at much higher margins because they don't have to have all the physical facilities, and they can do it with a smaller staff and things of that nature. So we talked about how people can generate revenue and be more efficient and effective. This is another great example of that. How many of you know what this is? This is not Motorola's first mobile phone. This is obviously a trading turret. We have one of the largest service providers in the UK that runs as one of their divisions a trading floor, and they've been attracting a lot of traders to their value proposition. Our Power Media XMS has been doing the voice media serving and recording on this for about a year, and now they're moving to WebRTC as well. So they're actually developing a WebRTC turret. Takes a lot less real estate. It can be mobile. They can now attract traders from home offices, enterprises, remote locations. They don't have to be on the trading floor with all of this massive, hyper-intensive sort of capital infrastructure. They're able to do this and offer it to a much broader audience and attract a lot more traders to their platform. So it's something that's ongoing now, and we've gotten a lot of very good feedback from the CTO of this particular Tier 1 service provider on how easy it's been to work with our media server, but also to get this beginning to be ported for WebRTC, et cetera. So another good example. Healthcare is a big issue right now. Those of you who live in the US, you can't turn into any of the networks without hearing about Obamacare and the implications of it. Obviously, insurance companies are struggling with this. Doctors are struggling with providing the quality care as more and more people come in to their emergency rooms. We have a partner by the name of Span who's here in the Oracle booth that has this application where doctors or practitioners are able to see, people remotely. Whether or not, someone fell down and they think their arm may be broken, but instead of going to the emergency room, they can get on a WebRTC session and take a look at it, and the practitioner would say, look, just do an over-the-counter splint on it, you should be fine. If it doesn't improve in 3 days, come and see me, as opposed to everyone kind of inundating the emergency room, as one example, if you will. Other types of clients they have that need to be taking certain medication, want to make sure that client's doing okay. They can set up a very easy, WebRTC call with those particular patients that are out there. The healthcare vertical is ripe for these sorts of innovations, and there's an awful lot of value to be added in really making this very business useful in healthcare. Education's another one of those verticals. They seem to be two of the hottest ones that we're seeing people try to really put new applications in front of customers with. So SPAN uses this. They use the JSR 309 and our media server up into the OCAS platform. Done quite a bit of work with them, and they're running that demo, as we said, in the Oracle booth as well. So what's really the common theme underlying these examples that I just showed you? There's really media processing that's adding value going on underneath, right? So point-to-point, peer-to-peer, FaceTime and Skype and those things have some value. How do you really create a lot more value for business useful conferencing and collaboration and all the other applications we've talked about so far today? So multi-party conferencing is one of those. Adding people, taking people out of the conference, splitting the streams, bringing them back together, all part of what the media processing engine does in order to make this much more effective and do multi-party conferencing and collaboration type of applications. We talked before about 64% of our couple hundred clients using this technology so far really want to interwork WebRTC with the networks that they have in place today. So that's a key part of how they're interworking into VoIP infrastructure at the enterprise level or into the IMS networks being deployed now pretty robustly throughout the world. Another one is transcoding, right? So as the WebRTC and encoding things become faster, VP8, VP9 we're working with already within our development community, obviously. Those sorts of transcoding activities, the transrating and transsizing that has to happen to get to multiple devices clearly with quality, all happens within this media processing environment. It's another reason we're very excited about the assets we have in media processing, but also to take from this, the value of media processing to really deliver business useful applications to our customers with WebRTC. Recording is another one, be it for regulatory purposes or compliance purposes or marketing purposes, that sort of thing. Obviously, this is a key part of how we store, record, play back the sort of information going on within a WebRTC conversation. And then processing the stream, whether that is ad insertion, whether that's text overlay, things of that nature. Media processing is taking place to make those things happen. And then a thing that we don't talk about too much in the WebRTC world because it's really browser to browser, but there's browsers built into many more machines today, obviously, and the person to machine and machine to machine is really starting to take off as well, and we think WebRTC can be another one of those avenues that really can accelerate and be an accelerant for these type of applications that can be run over the new networks. So where are we really going? I mean, you've got the DTMF piece here over the last 30 years. On the left side, that really was the first media processing sort of technologies that underlaid that. Obviously, a good snapshot here of our own development teams, using this technology inside a firm. Many of our partners are deploying video conferencing applications in the market already to help people collaborate faster, better, save money, communicate more quickly and more clearly with their constituents. And then the future is really unlimited, I think, for all of us in this regard. Obviously here a picture of a guy you might think looks like Home Alone Macaulay Culkin a little bit, but he's got the Google Glass. And so imagining, the amount of streaming data and video that's coming across these new networks and how WebRTC can really take advantage of people's use of that and people's desire to have faster, better, higher quality communication with each other around the world. So, from that perspective, we've talked about it being, getting a lot of energy, right? There's a lot of oomph behind it. We've already scheduled WebRTC number 5. So, this is really taking off within the community here. We think it can take off in the general population as soon as we begin to get more business justification out there in lowering costs, generating revenue, serving customers better. And so we do feel strongly within Dialogic that WebRTC can and must become business useful if communication services are really going to transform with the high expectations that we all have for it. So I just wanted to give kind of a brief talk here today and give us some of the context that Dialogic's thinking about. I look forward to engaging and interacting with a number of you this week. Have a fantastic conference, and hopefully you get a lot of value out of it here this week. Okay, take care. I'll hand it back to Phil now.